Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 420, and 421. The Friends' Whereabouts, Bridging the Islands and Vicious Vegetations, and The Friends' Whereabouts, A Negative Princess, and The King of Demons. In these episodes, our friends, the rest of our friends, a lot of them are having very, very interesting adventures, fraught with all sorts of social issues and perils. And then there's Usopp. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Gabriella for commissioning this episode. Oh, wait, no, I'm so sorry. Gabriella is the one who did the commissioning, but I am meant to credit Michael. Thank you, Michael, for commissioning this episode. I actually, need to look at that a little bit more closely than I have been. I recognize that I am not awesome at checking who should be credited versus who did the commissioning. So apologies on that, but thank you, Michael, if you're out there. So these episodes, predictably, I knew that we were going to wind up finding out what happened to everybody else. I didn't expect it to be so uneven in terms of like how much screen time each of them gets, because Usopp really gets a very short, I say that. I didn't look at the actual time, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think Usopp's was the shortest out of everybody's. I'm going to take a sip of iced coffee here. I'm so sorry, guys. I've been behind all day today, and I'm also, really tired, so I'm just trying to caffeinate myself, get through it. I hate when I have this feeling of needing to, pep myself up when I am going to talk about stuff that I'm actually excited to talk about, because it just feels rude to have a lack of energy regarding a thing I otherwise am really excited over. It's like my spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So let's start with Robin's. Hers is the weirdest. And I want to always ask for clarifications from you guys regarding things just to be sure I'm understanding correctly. Is Robin the only one of our friends that has wound up in the East Blue? Or did I just miss the mention? Because it feels like that's the first time that I heard it, but it may just be the first time I really clocked it. The fact that she's in a country on the East Blue is really alarming to me. It's even more alarming than Nami being on Skypiea. At least we didn't get to Skypiea until we crossed over to the Grand Line. But she's not Skypiea. She's on a sky island. Technically, not all sky islands are Skypiea, so fine. But that's a long way, man. Gus says, Robin is the only one in the East Blue, but I believe Chopper's kingdom is in the South Blue. Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay. Huh. Well, that's interesting. So the whole thing with Robin here, she is also in a snowy clime. Actually, you know what? I keep forgetting that each of these episodes starts off with some time with the Snake Princess and Luffy, so we have got to check in with them before we actually talk about Robin. But this I want to be more frustrated with the storyline of the Snake Princess. I want to feel more offended by the fact that this incredibly powerful woman is being treated like a jealous child. And I can't muster it up. I just don't care. It's funny. It's funny in a way that I know is inherently problematic. And that is an extremely powerful, aloof woman who thinks extremely highly of herself has been brought low by her adoration of a very unhot dude. I won't say that Luffy's not extraordinary. I won't insult him. But I will say that he is not somebody that you would look at twice on the street, very likely. And that's unfortunately like a fantasy of a lot of dudes, is making a powerful woman decide to set everything aside because she is so into you that she stops caring about her own things entirely, and her entire identity begins to center around how much she cares about you and would do anything for you. So I understand that the fantasy here is actually kind of gross, and because of who she is, it makes it sort of worse in terms of the power structure on this island and this all women island and, you know, all of that. I can see that, but I cannot find it in myself to be particularly upset by it because it's so absurdly over the top, the way they're playing it with her, that it's just always funny. So here we have her, she's gotten a ton of food for Luffy, and every time he speaks, we see, it's interesting because before, when he would say something, she would sort of think to herself, that is exactly how he would say it, because it was in her fantasy, him responding to something that she hadn't actually said out loud. It was always something like, you know, that she was being more eloquent and whatever than she was actually being at the moment, and her imagining how he would have responded if she had like had the guts to say that or whatever. But what's weird is that here, what she's imagining seems to be less that she is like coming up with fictional scenarios, and more that she is putting words in Luffy's mouth. Like, it's almost like when we go to the version of things where he's surrounded by roses and starbursts and whatever, it's not a fantasy. It's almost just us getting to see what she sees. So when she's like, how is it? And he says, you know, it's really good. It cuts immediately to him in that like blurred state, and he is saying, thank you, darling. And when we cut back to her, she does not say that is what he would say. It's like she has fully crossed over to seeing the situation the way that she wants to see it. So, she asks him if he wants tea. He says, sure, I'll brew some up then. So why don't you tell me a little about your friends? I don't know a thing. Of course, you don't have to if you don't want to. I'm just making conversation. It's not like I'm trying to dig into your personal life and find out every little thing about you, which I did think was kind of cute. So he's wondering who of his friends to start off talking about. And then he names Nami and Robin. Those sound like girls' names. And when the camera pulls out, she's pouring hot water that has suddenly appeared directly onto the tabletop. She's entirely missing the teapot. And then we get her imagining, I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you and I can't be together. And she's saying, but tell me why, Luffy? And we see this like tearing happening between them on the like screen, and this confetti falling as she's, because I'm already with Nami and Robin. Nami and Robin giggle. And we come back and she's like made the tea, but now she's pouring it into a cup and it's overflowing. And she's thinking to herself, I don't care. I won't give up that easily. And he just says, you really suck at making tea. And that's the end of the scene between the two of them for this episode. Honestly, that was very funny. You really suck at making tea. It's true. She does. So then we find Robin, like I said, in the snow. A little girl finds her. Everybody's being found by children, it feels like. And this girl brings her back to this compound, is like the best word I can come up with. There are guards. One of them is like drinking from a flask and doesn't see them as they pass by. And it's clear that they're having to sort of keep a low profile. There's nobody on the streets but guards. And when she is brought into the building, there are these women who are gathered, and it seems like all women. I don't know if I'm misreading that, or if it's just because they all are wearing like the same identical outfit that it's just difficult for me to like see. But it might be that in this workplace, people are separated by gender. But this girl comes in and they are upset with her for having to like gone out without checking with any of them. Apparently this is super against the rules, pretty dangerous, and the sort of thing that she should really know better. And her name is Saran, or Soren. I don't remember which emphasis, but these women are looking at Robin and are worried about what her deal is. You know, they all think maybe she's a refugee or a fugitive. And they're like, why would she come here? This is not the place to go. And Robin's sort of thinking, okay, you know what? I'm just going to take off. You guys clearly don't want me here. Saran stops her. And one of the women who's got pigtails that stick out to each side, she is the one who winds up giving them up later. She's the snitch. She is talking to Saran and is like, you aren't the only one who lives here. It's going to be all of our asses if they find out you've brought this woman here. I do not want to deal with what they're going to do to us. And this little girl is saying, I'll take the blame, which is noble and everything. But once you find out what they do to people to question them, like they torture them. We don't get details on exactly what that looks like, but it's implied that it's like pretty awful physical torture. All I could think was like, they're not going to let her do that, you know? They're asking, where do you plan on hiding her? And she says she'll stay in my room in the loft upstairs. And everybody's like, well, maybe for like a day or two, she would be okay up there. But this snitch, you can't be serious. We should turn her in before it's too late and we get caught. Now, they think, and I understand this, the fact that she's in the building at all, it's too late. They're going to get in trouble for having let her in to begin with. I don't know that that's true. But everybody is clearly very cowed by the situation. And when Saran sort of like presents as if she's going to stay longer than that, they're like, dude, first of all, no. We can't do that. You know how dangerous that is. But secondly, she shouldn't want to stay here for longer than that because this is a bad place. She don't need to be here. So up in the loft, Saran is making Robin this little bowl of rice, and it's like clear this is almost all she's got, you know. It's interesting that she has her own separate sort of living space, and I don't know if this is sanctioned or if people just let her have this because of her being a child or what. But she says that she hasn't left here since she was born. And so the smell of the outside world on Robin smells really good to her. And she's like, did you come from a warm climate? And when Robin says, yeah, on a ship, the little girl gets really excited and starts asking all these questions about like what the birds and the flowers were like what was everything like. And it turns out that this little girl draws pictures of the world, and they're pretty accurate actually in a lot of cases. So the bell rings in the middle of their meal, and Robin's like, really? You have to go to work now? It's the middle of the night. And the girl says, we've got to work all day and all night. But I'd love to hear about your travels when I get back. And Robin says, all right, I'll be here. But you can see her sort of, this feels like a real bad situation. And she's chilling by this window, hidden with only the lantern. And this is like, otherwise the room's just got like packing boxes in it. And she pulls out the Viva card for Rayleigh and is watching it and is sort of like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to meet up with them. What am I even going to do? She falls asleep. There's a storm. The window's like literally rattling. And we get this sort of fuzzy, I don't know if it's supposed to be that like Robin is dreaming or if it's just meant to be a vague impression of what it was like for them while they weren't with Robin. Regardless, she wakes up and Saran is just coming back and it's clear like the sun is coming up. And Saran says, we're trying to build a bridge. This country is nothing but one giant bridge. And we get a view from the outside. And indeed, this bridge goes on and on and on. And it's supposed to connect islands. And all of the buildings are located on this bridge and there's no land. I don't know how they're doing this, but she says the construction has been going on for centuries. And when Robin tries to ask her further questions, Saran is like, do you mind if we don't talk about this and talk about like cool stuff, like where you're from and what you've seen? Because honestly, I'm much, much more interested in that. So Robin tells her about where she's from, the different islands she's visited, and this little girl is so excited about it. And she goes and gets these really cool, it looks like sort of charcoal drawings that she has done on wood. She says, I drew them all from my imagination since I've never been outside Tequila Wolf. You know what I'm going to say, right? That name is bananas. Tequila Wolf? What? Like, I'm almost offended because this place sucks so bad. And Tequila Wolf is like one of the cooler names this show has had for a location. And how come it had to be wasted? Like, on this work camp spot. I'm very pissed. I really want to know, you guys, what Oda's process is for coming up with the names of locations. It's weird. It's weird. Like, I will never get over Ennis Lobby. That's just such a strange one. You know, like Lobby, it feels almost like a translation thing because like a lobby is a place. Technically. So if you just searched for names of places, I could see the word lobby coming up and not understanding the context that's necessary for that, using that. But that's really the only one of that type that I can think of, where it's like really a place otherwise. And it just feels so strange. What was the one that, what is the place that Luffy is heading to now? The name of the spot that Ace is being held captive in? Gus is saying Whiskey Peak, Tequila, Impel Down. Whiskey Peak is like, totally makes sense. Whiskey Peak feels like a real place. That's a name that I would not doubt is out there somewhere. You know, I would not be surprised if there's like a restaurant chain or something called Whiskey Peak, or that sounds, whiskey is a word that is used for a lot of like folksy kind of things, weirdly. And Peak is just, that is the name of a place in a lot of maps. I accept Whiskey Peak. That's actually, out of all of the names of places, probably the one that is the most real sounding. Impel Down. Like, the Downs are a place, I think, in England. And I think that's like a type of meadow or something. I'm not sure. So maybe down works in that sense. Impel, I don't really get what that means or why that's a thing. But like Tequila Wolf, it's just like a Mad Libs of two random words. Wolf would be the descriptor. If you did like Wolf Peak, that I would see as a real place. Wolf's Peak, that sounds real. But if you say Tequila Wolf, that's really not anything. That said, again, it sounds cool. It just doesn't make any sense as like a place name. And it's weird because, like, you know, not all of our locales are like this. Some of them are just like Sabaody. That's just a name. Period. There's no attempt to sort of like add words to it to give it a more intense sort of title. It's just Sabaody and that's it. And Alabasta, same thing. It's just a name, the name of a whole country. And that sounds like it's just, you know, I don't know how to explain what I'm saying. It's just, it feels like some of the names I can completely accept at face value. This is what it's called. And I never even think about it. And then there are names that come up that I'm just like, what? I also, Thriller Bark. I feel like a bark is a type of ship. Am I wrong? Did I look this up? I feel like I looked this up at one point. And so that like wound up sort of making sense, even though it does hit the ear really weird initially. Sorry, Gus is saying, have you ever looked up the weirdest city names in the U.S.? There's stuff like Kingdom of Satan, Ohio. But see, you're not, like, Gus, what I'm saying is, it's not the names of places that are wild sounding. Kingdom of Satan is an insane name in what it means, but those words go together. Kingdom of blank, that's just a name that makes sense. If this was Kingdom of Tequila Wolf, it would still be insane, but there would still be a feeling of like, okay, you know, it's just Tequila Wolf, which frankly sounds like a Quentin Tarantino movie or something. It doesn't, those words don't mean anything. And if you heard somebody saying something about Tequila Wolf in a conversation, you would never in your wildest dreams believe that was the name of a country. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, that's the part that I keep sort of being like, what is the naming convention that he goes with at any given time? Because it's all over the place and sometimes it works completely and I don't even think about it. And then other times I'm just like, every time I remember, it's like I'm hitting a wall again. Sabaody means bubbly / soapy, I think. I like that. I mean, that makes sense. Okay. But yeah, like some of the names in the US, like of towns, are really funny. I will never, when I first moved down here, first of all, there's just like the Americanization of words that happens with the names of places. So there's a place near me and it is spelled, the town is spelled Celina. Selena, right? You look at that and you're like, Selena. It's not the name of, like, it's not spelled the same way as the pop star, but it's very clear, in my opinion, how that's meant to be pronounced. But they don't. In Texas, they say Salina, which is very close to saliva, which I fucking hate. It's awful. It's gross. I hate it. But we also have a town right near me named Flower Mound. Flower, mound. I mean, that's like one step away from being a one-piece location because mound? Who's using the word mound to describe their town? That's a horrible word. It makes it sound like a trash heap. Just like a pile. And when you call a place a pile, that's like a British word to mean something's a dump. Why would you do that? Satan's Kingdom, Massachusetts. That's funny. I really wonder what it's like to live someplace like that. I remembered that one, but I think there were a lot of others that were words that just didn't make sense together. I'm willing to believe that. But, it's the sort of thing where if you're writing fiction and you can do whatever, choosing this, instead of it just being something that happens because of fucking weirdos who founded a town 200 years ago, you're choosing the names of these places. And to choose this, it's just really funny. So anyway, Whiskey Peak, I stand by as the most believable name, but Tequila Wolf is the least believable name by far. I think that the whiskey thing too in the US, because we had prohibition, their whiskey got used as the name for all kinds of things because of locations being key for bootlegging and stuff. So I think that's why whiskey is used so much more often here. But tequila is made with ingredients that we did not farm up here. So we didn't have bootleg tequila going on most of the time. And I think that's probably why tequila is not something that's, I wonder if it's something that gets used more in Mexico or, in Central America in general. But I don't believe there was ever a prohibition there. So I don't know how much there had to be secret locations and sneakiness and stealth and stuff with that. I'm sorry, Gus. There's a river/county near me named Pudre is how I'm reading it. Poudre. I think it's Spanish, but people pronounce it Pooter. I have no idea if that's correct or an Americanization though. I'm going to go and hazard a guess. That is not correct. Like I said, I went with Pudre because I'm thinking about it. It almost looks like Padre. So Pudre is my automatic, Pooter. Why are we like this? Why do we need, is it purposefully making things sound like body parts, like saliva? Why are we like this? I want answers. Anyway, okay. Sorry guys. I know I got totally. So these drawings that she says she's doing it from her mind, but she says, whenever I'm drawing it, it makes me feel like I'm there, like I'm actually visiting that island and I forget all about being stuck here. And these places look like real places. At one point, she's drawn Sky Island, and I love this. This little girl is like, wait, that's a real place? And can you imagine, you guys, if you were just like a little kid who draws fun shit, and you drew a town with all the castles in clouds, and somebody was like, oh, I've been there, and you found out that this was like a real thing? Oh my Lord, I would lose my whole mind. And she's like, will you tell me all about it? And all of the ladies, it turns out, are like right nearby. And they're like, we would also like to hear about this, actually, if you wouldn't mind. And the little girl kind of pauses here and is like, our lives are very hard here, but maybe making this bridge is sort of a noble thing because it'll help connect the world. And once it's done, everybody will get to see so many beautiful islands whenever they want. Maybe, it will help others travel all over the world, which is what I would want to do. And we get this really cute little bit with her, like, in this, she's in like yellow overalls and she's standing in one spot painting, and there are these islands that are being connected by rainbows. Again, it's all been very Lisa Frank lately, and I'm into it. I'm 100% behind this. And I kind of was like, she's really trying to put a positive spin on this thing that's like objectively so horrible, but I can respect it. Okay, Gus says, I looked it up. Apparently, it's the correct pronunciation, pooter. I do not believe you. And it's French for powder. I don't believe you, Gus. I don't know. I really would like you to get a second opinion on that pronunciation. That's all I'm saying. You have to find like a YouTube video, one of those ones where they just say like a single word. I think I've mentioned this on other podcasts, but somebody made like a spoof channel like that where they claim to be helping you learn how to pronounce things, but they actually give you the wrong pronunciation on purpose. And I think that's hysterical. And I like want to be mad at the person for doing that and duping unsuspecting people, but also that's very funny. So Robin, like this is a really sweet little conversation. The girl is so excited. And the fact that these other women are deeply beaten down and sad and want to be part of it is just heartwarming and heartbreaking. Then, of course, we cut to the snitch outside who says, don't forget we made a deal, as this guy walks away. I held up my end, so you have to get me out of this country. Now, we don't see him reply to her. And I really have to wonder if she's actually going to get her end of the deal. Like, how much do you trust? This is the thing, when you have the sort of system that relies on people ratting each other out. What's the word I want to say? The compensation for turning their fellow workers in. You have got to prove that compensation is real, that there's a reason to expect it, or else people aren't going to continue to provide you with information. So if we were looking at this from a totally rational standpoint, they would get her out of there, because if people knew going to them with secret info actually wound up backfiring and you don't get anything out of it, nobody would do it anymore. But the way that this universe seems to work is very much, we want to show the bad guys are really bad guys in the short term, and we don't consider the long term of any of our like approaches to things. So I'm going to guess also, for the sake of like immediate gratification that this girl gets what she deserves, she's not getting off of this island or this bridge or whatever. So we see the raid, and all of these men are just completely tossing the place. Apparently, the women who are up in the loft, it's like they aren't aware the loft exists. I'm not totally sure, like, immediately whether they know to go up there. But, you know, we've got the whole place being turned over, and eventually they find their way up there. You know, she's harboring a suspicious woman. Somebody is. There are too many people out there opposed to the construction of the bridge. Now turn her over. And Robin has snuck out one of the windows and is sort of hiding out on the roof. So she can hear this whole conversation happening, but she's not actually in the room. She's not like hiding behind a closet door or something. And this lady is telling him, like, we are tired and just want to go to sleep. We aren't hiding anybody. Now leave us alone. And some dude just like comes up and knocks her to the floor. And the head guy in charge is like, well, if you want to do this the hard way, we could do that too. If you're familiar with our interrogation tactics, I guess you're going to get what you want. One of the slavers actually does open a window and look both ways outside. And I was sort of impressed at the fact that he like was that thorough, because I feel like a lot of people would not have bothered. He does not find anything. Robin likely would have left some like footprints in the snow, but you know, probably, let's just say she did it so high up he can't see them from where he is. So they find the drawings of this little girl's islands, and this dude laughs at her like it's the funniest thing he's ever seen. That's some sixth sense of irony you've got there, kid. And it's just such a weird thing to like, oh, I'm going to personally enjoy mocking this child's dreams of eventually like being somewhere else. And I want to say that it's beyond belief, but it's not, because there are just bully assholes out there who are just like this. And he holds up each of these drawings in front of her. And again, they're on pieces of wood. So when she doesn't answer, he just starts breaking them in half just to like push her to the edge. And he says, if you want off Tequila Wolf, cooperate and I can get you out of here. And she says, I don't know. I appreciated this. As much as it would be easy to just be like, fine, I'll just tell you because I really do want off. She isn't willing to just betray Robin immediately. I wouldn't have been that mad at her, honestly, considering everything. But I also, again, don't know how much to trust that he says this would happen, that he would actually get her off this place. So the last drawing that he comes to, he picks the Sky Island drawing. And when he threatens to break that, she really begins to lose it. And I thought here she would crack, but she just says, look, I really don't know. And he drops all of the drawings on the ground and just stomps them into a million pieces. It is truly hilarious how angry this man gets because of this little girl. Like, sir, I don't know what you think you're proving here, but it is so embarrassing. You are sad. Just a sad man. And of course, we have to get take them all into the dungeons and torture them until they tell us what we want to hear. And I want the kid to get the worst of it. Like, really? So outside, all of these men are firing all of a sudden. So the dudes who are in the loft have stopped and are going, well, wait, what's going on? And then we see Robin, and she is attacking the dudes firing. And correct me if I'm wrong, kids. Breaking their necks. Wow. Most of the time on this show, people get injuries that you can take as being fatal in a sense, but there's not a real oh, that person's for sure dead from that. But there's no way you make the gesture she's making and a person drops and they haven't been killed. That's the only way that this would happen. I'm fine with it, for the record, but damn. And yeah, this last guy who was trying to be like, what are you doing? Put your hands up or I'll shoot. And she stares at him for a second and then she just twitches her hand and he begins to literally run away from her and say, I don't hurt me. I'm sorry. But, when she doesn't hurt him, he turns around and crawls back to his gun and yells to his cronies. And I was like, you are not worth the fucking air you're breathing, sir. She just let you live and you just do this shit. It's pitiful, honestly. So all of the guys that are in the loft, the women are yelling, why don't they have her? They're telling you they have her. Just go fucking get her from them and stop harassing us. One of the ladies says, you've worn out your welcome here, which is the sort of thing that you say to a person that you can actually do something to. It felt like a flex that she couldn't back up, but she's also really, really big. So I don't know, maybe she could. So yeah, he yells he's got fucking those bloodshot eyes and stuff. And he yells to one of the guys to go and back him up. And threatens them one last time. But then he walks over to the hatch, and I guess he just thought there was a staircase there, or the staircase was on the wrong side. It's a ladder, just so you know. And he just falls through the floor. It's actually very funny because when he falls, one of his men on the ground floor comes up to him and is like, "Sir, are you okay?" And he just looks up and goes, "Rah!" There was something about that just was very, very funny to me. So the long story short, there's a whole new set of gunmen. They have surrounded Robin. She is sitting on the body of one of the men that she has taken down in the midst of them with her legs crossed like she's on a talk show or something. And the dude that's like in charge is explaining to her that everybody who builds this bridge, everybody is here because they are criminals. Either that or they're citizens of countries that refuse to ally with the world government. So they've been toiling to build this wall or this, oh God, this bridge. And we have a scene of like somebody falling from exhaustion and a person coming and like beating the shit out of them to get them up. And the captain says, in short, they're slaves. And she says, how long until the bridge is done? I have no idea, but it's been under constant construction for 700 years. And when she asks for what, he says, you don't need to concern yourself with that. And that's a really, I was taking it for granted that this little girl was right in saying, oh, it's to like bring us to new places and meet new people. And now I'm like, it didn't even occur to me that there was something nefarious that could happen with a bridge, but sure. And he says, all you need to worry about is building this bridge because that's what you're going to do now. And I was like, sir, I don't know if you saw her bring down like a group of 10 men. She is not actually going to be doing any of that. So we cut then to Usopp, who is at the Bowen Islands. They are artichoke-shaped, lotus-shaped. They're really cool looking. And Usopp is in the middle of a dream about how, he's the one that's going to lead his friends with him on this expedition. And then, if only they could have actually been with me for this. And it's sort of like, I don't know if it was a little bit confusing to anybody else, but we have seen everybody waking up from having passed out when they hit the ground. And with Usopp, we start off with him already awake and talking about being the hero of the party. So I really thought this was a dream. I thought that he was having something the way that Chopper did, where he was having a dream about like his ideal situation where all of his friends were there, but they all respected his judgment and were like following him as a leader. And then it turns out he's actually awake and he's actually got like, all of his stuff with him and everything is what it looks like. I kept waiting for things for it to be like, oh, and then he woke up, but no. So he's in these woods. It's a jungle, really. There's nobody with him, so he's starting to go a little stir crazy mentally. There are rustlings in the underbrush around him, and he does not like the sound of any of it. Of course, he gets freaked out because who knows what kind of fucking animals you're going to be dealing with. And he keeps yelling, hoping that he's going to rouse somebody, but starts to come to the conclusion that the island is totally uninhabited. And he starts to get pretty emotional about it, which I'm not mad about. It's very, Tom Hanks Castaway sort of vibes. So then we have the local fauna getting involved. There is a giant beetle that starts chasing him. And as he's running away from it, a spear gets thrown so close that it actually like rubs up against his nose. And we have a very funny scene of him flying past this beetle while his huge nose carries him across as well. And he and the beetle both land headfirst in the ground, but so does some strange man who's got a beetle-shaped sort of carapace over his cloak. And also has like, I think I could call that a tunic and hose. So it's a real, all right, this guy saved Usopp, but what the hell? And when he stands up, he's got a helm on that's got a, like, almost looks like pincers on the top, but they are, I'm used to, like, I always think of pincers as being side by side the way that antlers are, but often they're not. It's, front to back. And he has a weird sort of fur. I don't know if you want to call it rough, but it almost looks like a beard. It also goes out the side, so it could just be like beard and hair. But there's something about it that to me looked like it was attached to his clothing and not his head. So this guy says that his name is Heracleson. And it turns out he just adds "n" to the end of like the end of every sentence, I guess, really is what it is. Usopp says, "Oh, that's a pretty cool name you got there." And he says, "Really? You think so?" And when he says that, it seems like that mattered to him. So Usopp is excited. There's a person, he's chatting. It's nice to have company. He finds a fruit that he's interested in eating. And he asks, "Is this safe to eat? I've never seen one like this before." And Heracles says, "Sure, Usopp. It's fine. By the way, you can call me Heracleson." And Usopp's like, "Yeah, okay, I heard you the first time. Sure, anyway." So he starts to get ready to eat the fruit. And he turns around and there is this giant worm that licks him. It looks like a worm. It's apparently a plant. "These are man-eating plants." And Usopp is like, "Excuse me?" And then we get this weird chase scene of all of these different vegetables who are attempting to eat him up. And that's it. That's the end of the episode. It's so weird. Like, Robin had a full 20 minutes. And then Usopp had like 5, if that. So, okay. Then we're going to jump to, and this one's, I'm like, running out of time here. But I don't really think it's too big a deal regarding Zorro's situation because he has, it turns out, landed on that strange island that Perona had asked to be on, which is really fun. I hadn't expected to see her again, and getting to find out that she was like sent to exactly where she asked to go, basically. It's not what she wanted it really, but it's pretty good. So I'm going to just read her dialogue here because, reminder, Kuma straight up goes, if you could go on vacation anywhere, where would you go? And she's repeating, "I know what I said. If I were to travel anywhere in the world, I would want to go someplace dark and damp with a creepy old castle, and I would spend all my days singing songs of curses." And she's really mad because even though she got what she wanted technically, this place doesn't have any maids. There are no servers. There's nothing cute. No bagel sandwiches and hot chocolate served to me in bed every morning. And to top it off, there isn't a single stuffed animal here. And I'm really curious about where, like, look, I had theorized before about how maybe Kuma can send you where you would like to go, right? And their ideal places for some of them do seem to have, Nami got a weather island and Frankie got a mechanics island. Like, that seemed cool. If you look at, like, Sanji's island, the deal with everything there is they all have girlish hearts. So maybe you could argue that he technically sent Sanji somewhere that he would have liked. It just wasn't specific enough. With Chopper still not born out. Don't know still what's going on with Chopper. And I can't imagine with Usopp what the deal is unless Heracleson turns out to be an inventor, you know, of some kind. He has really strong sniper man, what's his name? Energy to him. So I'm wondering, is that why Usopp has wound up here? Not because of the place, but because of the person and like his wild adventures? I don't know. With Robin, she does like to fight injustice. Like, we know that. So maybe that's why she got put where she did. But it also could be about like opposing the world government and this being a secret operation of theirs somehow. Soge King. Thank you, Gus. The monkey's paw fruit curls another toe bean. Oh, God. Toe bean. So anyway, this whole thing with Perona, she's like really lonely and she just wants to go back to Killer Bark. And as she's crying, you see this like cliff in the background and it's all curly like the Nightmare Before Christmas cliff. And I think that's completely intentional. So this is when Zorro crash lands and she's like, oh, sweet, there's somebody else here. I hope it's somebody cute. But then she sees that it's a fucking Straw Hat and she's like, God damn it. And long story short, she decides that she's going to bring him in and wrap him up and nurse him back to health and then turn him into one of her servants, which of course he has absolutely no interest in. And he's got a ton of bandages on him when he wakes up. But later she puts even more on him to make him in the shape of her stuffed teddy bear pet that she had, that servant. So I'm wondering, like, if Kuma put Zorro where he would want to be, I guess it's like fighting a worthy opponent, maybe? Like, why is he here? Perona chose it specifically because of the look and location. And for him, he got sent to some place with a specific person. I'm willing to accept that. And she basically like subjugates Zorro by using the, you know, negative ghosts on him repeatedly. It's like a kind of disturbing scene, actually, with him attempting to fight back and her constantly like breaking his spirit over and over again. And it's funny if you don't think about too hard how actually horrifying that is. And it's funny too, because at one point he's going out the wrong door and she's like, where are you even going? The exit's that way. And then she stops and she's like, shit, I probably shouldn't have just told him how to get out of here. But Zorro is so bad at directions that he just goes the wrong way, even though there's like 2 other doors and she very clearly pointed at one of them. He still picks the other door, which honestly, that was a good joke. I thought that was really funny. So yeah, she tries to turn him into a stuffed animal. It's so weird because eventually it cuts from a scene where he is definitely still wrapped in bandages to completely, all the bandages are gone. And it's really, really sudden. And I didn't understand what was supposed to have happened because he doesn't have his swords on him. It's not like, you know, he could just cut all of this off of him and it's, you know, he is looking at her after trying to exit the wrong way. He glares as she's telling him, oh my God, you're still going the wrong way. And then it cuts to him walking out the door and he is completely unwrapped. It's really strange. I almost felt like that might be like just an animating mistake. I don't know. So he's leaving. She calls after him and he says, unless you're going to tell me where you hid my swords, I don't want to fucking talk to you. So she's like, you know what? And she lets him go, but does that thing where she sends like a copy of herself ahead of him in the hall. And it's really funny because like after he leaves, she genuinely looks really bummed. It's like she doesn't want to be at odds with him because she's so lonely, you know? So anyway, she stops him in the hall. She's turned herself into a giant version of herself and is staring down at him and tells him, "You're not going to get away that easy because I've been lonely far too long." And he turns and there's a giant ghost coming down the hallway at him. We hear him yell, and then that's it for Zorro. I'm going to wrap this one pretty quick because that's all it deserves. But this next one is Brooke. And we've got a group of Satan worshippers. It's very funny because the Satan worshiper is wearing a ram's head on his head that looks like the figurehead of the Going Merry. Like, very, very similar. And there are all these candles burning with like a orange center and purple tips. It's cool looking. I'll say that. And the name of this place is something like Hungaria, and it's like the country of poverty. So I don't know if it's supposed to be that they are so desperate that they're doing devil worship because they've got nothing left, because the building they're in doing this ritual is like the one standing building in a field that's apparently surrounded by debris of other kinds. And there's a storm going on outside and the building's on stilts. So I thought maybe it was like all of these other places got destroyed as the result of flooding, like a hurricane, monsoon, something like that. So anyway, they're doing their summoning and there's this flash of light and a hole in the ceiling as something falls through it. And there's Brooke waking up slowly in the middle of this like crater in the floor that he has made. And he is really worried about his friends, and there's a real sense for him of, I just made these friends and now somebody sent me to God fucking knows where. And I've got to admit, guys, this broke my heart. Like, he's just been through it. He only just found some people. And now already he gets like ripped apart. I hated it. So he says something about how he has to go find them. And all these guys are like panicking because they need him to stay because they think he's Satan answering their prayer. And they decide, okay, well, make him a sacrifice. We have to give him something to keep him around. And then there's this young girl off to the side. And my friends, the way this is drawn, she looks like she's 12. Like, it's so creepy. It's so creepy, y'all. I know, but like, oh my God. So Brooke looks at this like trembling, beautiful young blonde and says, "Would you mind showing me your panties?" To which the head of the Satanist says he wants to see underwear. Everybody show him your underwear. Which is amazing. And we just get Brooke saying, well, I don't need to see everyone's underwear. Oh. And I was sort of like, what was that moment? Was it that he was looking at men and finally caught sight of another woman? Or was there a man where he was like, actually, I take it back. You men can show me yours too. Why not? But yeah, what a weird, so that's the end of is him just going, wow. And that's the end of the episode. It's, oh no, I lie. We go back to Luffy for a little while here. I forgot about this because, he's not taking any pains to be quiet and hide the fact that he's here with Boa. So she's continuing to think about how Luffy, like, is probably in love with these two girls that are on his crew. We get an amazing bit where he's walking away going, I can't be tied down, babe. You're better off without me. It is so good. It's very funny. But they're overhearing her, like, the men outside are overhearing him and thinking it's her. And there's one guy who's like, never expected her to burp like that or talk that way, but honestly, I kind of find it a turn on. I was like, Jesus. But yeah, so eventually all of them sort of gather up and demand that she like show herself because they're certain that there's somebody else in there. But she finally just like strolls out and is going, remind you, I need that same like 100 kilos of food 5 times a day. I don't really care if you guys starve to death. And we have a brief check-in again with Luffy and Ace's card. It's like barely bigger than his thumb at this point. It's really, really starting to burn down. We go to Navy headquarters briefly. Famous Marines from all the world are gathering at Marineford to prepare to battle to the death if need be. And we just like hear that they're gathering together, but there's no dialogue here of any kind. We don't actually see anything really happening. Captain Smoker is part of the crew, by the way, which I had forgotten that he was one of them, but I'm sort of excited to see him again. And at the like very end, there's what's his name? I keep wanting to say Garp. Is that his name? Gorp? He is standing outside Ace's cell still. It's sort of weird because like days have passed, but it's like he's been standing there in the same place the entire time. Garp. That is him. Okay. And he says, how are you doing with all those horrific wounds, huh, Ace? And he says, because of you, Navy headquarters is no. All the world government is a mess. And he starts laughing. And I was like, does he approve? Because he like worked against Luffy earlier. But I can't tell like how much of that is part of him playing a part. I don't know. Ace tells him to kill him. So if he is, apparently Ace isn't aware of that, you know? But yeah, Garp just says everything's in motion. Nothing's stopping Whitebeard from fighting. It's gonna happen, son. And it seems the Navy has made the King of the Sea mad as hell. And that is the end of the episode. So, yeah, I have to wrap up. I really appreciate all of y'all. Thank you, Gus, for hanging out with me. Hope everybody can find the event, too, because I know it's moved, and so there hasn't been a lot of people here lately, but it could just be a time thing. But I really enjoy having you. So I hope you're enjoying the content as much as I'm enjoying covering it. What a weird show. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.